afternoon. This is the Vanguard on Power 108.9. My name is Malik Ishmael. We're broadcasting live from the Battery at SunTrust Park in the great city of Atlanta. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to a great show today. We have Kathleen in the building, co-host, and we got a special guest co-host today. I told everybody to get their popcorn ready.
Please,
Valentine.
Sure up.
You like butter on that brain, brother?
Please do.
All right, this is Valentine Ali. He's actually a co-host of The Veal here at Power 108.9, broadcasting 12 noon on Saturdays, so definitely check him out. And our co-host, Kwame Welsh, should definitely be in the building very soon. So, brother, how are you, brother?
Motivated. I want to say, first off, thank you for having me up here on y'all platform. I've checked it out a few times. I definitely love it. Definitely love the name, too, Vanguard. We're going to get on that later, too.
All right, all right.
Definitely love it.
Well, that means out front and front line. So that's what that basically means. But also I want to commemorate Black August. It's something that obviously shouldn't be celebrated, but should be commemorated. And it was really first organized around 1979. And it was a brother named Katari Golden who had a medical death in prison at the hands of the authorities there. But George Jackson was a tremendous influence as well as
very
Jonathan
tremendous.
Jackson. Yes,
very tremendous.
And I want to speak to your respect for George Jackson history and what have you.
So when it comes to George Jackson, he's definitely influenced a lot of my theology, ideology, the way I handle certain issues. When it comes to prison reform, when it comes to knowledge itself, when it comes to revolution, period. His book Blood in My Eye, and he has another book called Soledad Brothers, which is, if you're not from California, Soledad is one of the major prisons that's in Southern California. Okay. So, but he's definitely helped me tune in my revolution ideology and gave me a blueprint on how to come at certain things today. And he's the first person I've seen use that term, what the Vanguard is, when he illustrates because I am the Vanguard, you're the Vanguard, right? That's and so it's kind of like when we go into, like I was telling you, like the military, when you do a change of colors, it's the same thing. It's when the when we come to revolution and the civil rights movement, it never ended. Only thing is we're just passing the torch. It's a continuous of information revolution that's continuously going, and George Jackson breaks that down in his information. And then I like how you said too, we don't celebrate Black August. So one of the things that George Jackson did when they did Black August around that time in August in prison is they would wear black bandanas around their arm. And one of the things they did was similar to what the Muslims did, which was fasting. Right. And one of the reasons they wanted to fast is because they had a warrior-like mentality. Being a revolutionary is being a warrior. And so they understood we need to fast. We need to understand how the slaves felt. Or I don't even like saying slaves, how our ancestors who were in slavery were going through, still working, still hungry and stuff like that. And so he wanted to create those situations so that we can still be connected to our ancestors. So Black August is also a time to reconnect with your ancestors and what past struggles that they went through in the past, so we do not forget.
And tell me about Jonathan Jackson,
Jonathan
brother
Jackson
of George Jackson, who was...
Jonathan Jackson was 17 when he passed away, but Jonathan Jackson is the younger brother of George Jackson. And what I believe, if you read Blood in My Eye, they have letters between him and Jonathan Jackson about what revolution is in the current state of the black consciousness in America. Because George Jackson, I think if I'm not mistaken, he was the first person in California to be given 1 year to life. He was given 1 year to life. Ended up doing 18 years or something, been eventually killed by the correction officers.
Right.
But he talks to Jonathan, who's still going on in the time during the 60s and 70s where revolutions are rapid, where the Black Panthers is rapid. And Jonathan takes it into his own hands and he applies the methods right then and there, and he eventually dies in a courthouse shooting, I believe in Marin City.
Yeah, Marin County
Marin County in California. But he represents the new Vanguard, and George Jackson represented that older Vanguard. So he represented the radicalness out of that youth. Jonathan represented that black youth in that time in America. Jonathan represents the black youth here in America right now, or the Black Lives Matters, or the new Black Panther Party. Jonathan Jackson represents the people right now in Africa and South Africa who are fighting against post-apartheid. You know what I mean? He represents every youth right now, and that's oppressed people.
Okay. Right on. And one thing about Jonathan is that he was a security guard for Angela Davis.
Facts.
As we welcome Brother Kwame to the show. What's going on, brother? All right. And he was a security person for
Angela Davis.
Yes. And thing is, she had purchased some guns. And so thing is, man.
Boy.
There you go, brother. What's up? Thing is, brother, you know, those guns were actually linked to the courthouse attempt to free the Soledad brothers. So that's, again, carrying that theory into practice.
Yeah.
And again, he was a young man, but he was an ultimate revolutionary in terms of trying to liberate his brother.
I like that you brought that up too, because right now we're in a time right now in politics where a lot of people are talking about the Second Amendment and then gun control. And what has happened after that time period, if you look at the NRA, the National Rifle Association, when they first came out in the 60s and stuff like that, it's ironic that they were pushing for more stricter gun laws. They was pushing, and now they switch. And the reason being is when we look at people like Bunchy Carter and those guys that influenced George Jackson, they were about picking up arms. So we look at the Deacons of Defense, they were about picking up arms. And when they went to the California courthouse,
that's right,
what did Ronald Reagan do when he was the governor? Right. He issued, okay, we got a new law. It's
the
called
Mulford.
a concealed license. You're going to have to go down there. And so it shows that we as black people have always had guns and revolution, and that isn't important because now we have a culture now where black people are not they don't have a black culture, a gun culture in the black community as rapid or as big. And it's because we're pacified and we're scared of guns. But if we study our history, even with Harriet Tubman movie coming out, Harriet Tubman carried a pistol on her.
Oh, yeah.
So we understand guns is part of revolution. It's not the only part, but that is a part of it, and we just got to accept it.
Well, I think we need to know more about people like Robert Williams. You know, he was in the NAACP chapter in Monroe, North Carolina, and he was the first one to advocate self-defense with guns. You know, he formed the Black
modern
Guard.
times.
In modern times,
I mean, even when we were just talking about Geronimo Pratt.
Right.
Geronimo Pratt did one of the same things. Geronimo Pratt served with the 82nd Airborne in Vietnam and Korea. He came back and he taught the Black Panther, which was the Black Panther Party of Self-Defense.
Right.
Black Party of Self-Defense. He went back and taught them the same thing. So I kind of get upset when a lot of I've met black people over my time in travels that'll be mad at me and be like, "How are you like a black intellect or a so-called Pan-African and you served in the military?" Well, information recycles itself. We have to go sometimes into these institutions, get that information and bring it back. You don't think George Jackson, when you read his books, you see he studied military movements. He studied Mao. He studied what was going on with these guys, Dessalini, and he studied these guys that was going on in Italy. So you got to understand military tactics as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But also there was a movie we talked about called The Spook Who Sat by the Door.
I'm reading that now.
Classic.
I'm reading that now. I got like 40 pages.
Tell us more about what you're reading, because I know you haven't seen the film. I actually have the film.
I'm going to watch it. So far, it's about Sam Greenleaf.
Sam Greenleaf.
So pretty much it's a time in the 70s. And what happens is you got a guy and he's a black guy and he comes up, he goes to University of Chicago. He comes from the inner cities. He was involved in gangs. And what happens is the CIA gets called out. And what happens is these politicians are really playing the black codes and trying to get elected. So he's like, well, the CIA isn't integrated enough with blacks. And so what they do is they hand select blacks, black intellects, guys that were Kappas, Alphas, guys that went to Howard and HBCUs. And he isn't from that. Right. So he learns how to be conspicuous and learns how to blend in, goes into CIA, learns their information, and then comes back and teaches his old gang, which is the Mickey Cobras out of Chicago, which was at one part of time part of Jeff Fort's Black P. Stone Nation. I don't know if I know y'all know. Stone Nation is. But it was part of that. Jeff Fort, if y'all don't know, is the first American ever convicted of a terrorist act.
Wow.
In America.
Wow. That might have slipped past me. And I'm a long tooth, too.
Yeah, he linked up with the Libya government and was going to buy some guns, man. They came and got him.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, what it's talking about is just going in some of these systems that we have here, whether it's government, whether it's education, whether it's the military, and then taking that information and bringing it back to the community.
Okay. And I would think that if we're getting ready to bring in Kathy and Kwame in the conversation as well, I would think that Geronimo Pratt, when he did it for the L.A. Panthers, in terms of bringing some of those skills that he learned in the military, I think he had a great way of applying it to his comrades, and where they can go ahead and carry out certain things as well.
Definitely. I mean, so like speaking back with weapons, that's one of the things I talk about when we talk about gun control. the military, I was a cavalry scout on combat arms, and one of the things the military does is we go over basic rifle marksmanship. And we teach that this weapon is nothing without you. You and this weapon is one. And so what we're doing is we're teaching you a discipline to respect the power of this weapon. Right. And once you understand the power of this weapon, and you can understand that with your actions can take another life, you have a more profound respect for that power of that weapon and how you utilize it and use it. And so that came out of the military. Right. So that's something that we should implement now when it does talk about nowadays and we talk about the Second Amendment and how we're going to use rifles.
I think it's very important as well. So when we come back, we're back with Brother Valentine Ali, and then now we got Brother Kwame in the building. He's ready and ready to roll. So we'll be back in a minute. Rock and roll.
All right.
Back with the Vanguard Power 108.9. Yeah, good stuff. Yes.
I got a joke.
What's up, my man? Hey, Kwame, when we come back, I'm going to have you read that on behalf of Valentine Ali. Okay. For us, but also do a disclaimer for Kathy and then the station. Yeah. Yeah, where we say this views doesn't represent station Kathy, but it does represent us. Okay. Right. Coming in look like a model. I was like, what's up, man? Ebony man up in here?
So what's your major?
We're going to get that on the way back. As soon as I open up with Kwame.
For that? Yeah, it's actually a crook. Oh, wow. It's a little heavier. Yeah. That's one of how to get away with murder weapons.
How to get away with murder, right? The original How to Get Away with Murder.
That's a perfect one.
Oh, wow.
The mystery of how did they die?
I thought it was an award at first.
Okay.
I'm like, Mike won an award for something. They didn't put the imprint on it, though.
He has to hold it. He's ready for it.
Oh, okay, all right. And then when we have Kwame open up and go straight to Kwame about the statement, the announcement, we'll go to you to ask Brother Valentine your questions as well. All right.
You come open up this break from this.
I got it.
Yes. Yeah, that's fine.
This guy right here. See on this top is becoming and they don't be really kind of like, sometimes they don't be really kind of like
Going out there.
not really kind of picking up and putting down, but I be sitting over here like
So you gotta understand.
He just got edified.
Yes. When it comes to the
I got you, bro. I got you.
I don't represent most people who go through college.
Correct.
Like you have like two ideologies that they try to box a lot of black people in. You have your nationalists and your integrationists. So most people who go to collegiate areas in college come from your black, not your national, but your integrationists who believe that I gotta go to college, I get a good degree, get a job,
Right.
and this is what it is. I come from a Christian family, blah 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 blah. I don't represent that.
Right.
I come from a different where it's like I come up in a polygamy household. I come up in Pan-African and black nationalism. So most people like that don't go through college. And so it throws people off when they see me because I look like a frat guy
Right.
or something. I get it all the time.
Right,
Are you
right,
in a
about
frat? Are you this? I have that image of somebody, but when I start to articulate my thoughts, they like, whoa, it throws them off.
I didn't say you can't judge that book by the
Can't judge
cover.
a book by its cover.
There's a book with just one look.
it throws them off big time.
All right. This is Vanguard on Power 108.9. And again, we have Brother Valentine Ali just putting it down. And I told everybody to get the extra butter on the popcorn today.
Make sure you got extra butter
Extra
on there
butter,
too.
man. You like kettle too? You like kettle too, brother? It's all good. But right now, we're going to read an announcement. There's a mentor of mine called Bilal Sunni Ali, as well as Professor Umoja, as well as Buddy folks who want to make an announcement as regards to Jamil Al-Amin and Black August. So I'm going to have Kwame read the announcement.
Yes. Is it morning still?
It's supposed to be.
Anyway, Radio Free Imam Jamil, he's one of our political prisoners, and his organization's having a media week, August 18th to the 24th, for Black August, representing Black August. Also, they have a Relearning H. Rap Brown National Conference. That's his slave name. And that conference is October 4th and 5th. If you want to find out more about that, look on Facebook, Instagram, all of the social medias. They even have a blog. And I want to read off two numbers. It's 470-451-8416 and 470-272-9901. And some of the views expressed on this program specifically does not represent Power 108.9 or Kathy.
But it does represent me and you.
Exactly.
And Brother Valentine,
Yes.
sure.
Yes, we're the warriors.
Stand on it.
Yes.
Well, I have a couple of questions.
All right.
One, I wanted to ask you, I heard you're in school. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in school, your major, and where you see yourself?
All right, so currently I'm at Georgia State University, a senior. I'm a political science major with a concentration in pre-law with a minor in African American studies. So most people, when they hear that, they're like, oh, you're going to be an attorney, you're going to be an attorney. I did take the L side, 151. However, I decided not to go to law school. I believe that I'm going to go into education.
Okay.
There's only 2% of black males in education. Mm-hmm. And so when we look at specifically black boys, we see that there's a prison pipeline. We see that women, black women especially, are being pushed towards education. That's why they have the highest ranking of degrees in the United States right now. And black boys are being pushed to prison. You don't aspire to be something if you don't see them or know somebody from that community. So I came from the industries. I grew up gang banging. I've done everything possible under the sun that was wrong and good. And so I think I'll be a great addition to the education field, and I can teach information that hasn't been talked about as far as in the collegiate information and promote critical thought. That's what I want to think. I want to do. I want to promote critical thought because in college, what happens is a lot of the times we regurgitate ideas and information and we don't do the research on it. So I want to challenge people to think for themselves. And that's pretty much what I see myself doing.
So you see how you said you're coming up and where you are now?
Yes, ma'am.
So what transitioned you from the way you were to who you are now?
Information.
Okay.
Information.
All right.
When you know better, you do better. And when I know you know the information, I have to hold you accountable totally different. You know what I'm saying? So it's with the information. Since a child, my parents have always had me reading books. That was a form of discipline. And it actually helped me out. But I would say, okay, so I went to the military. I was caught up in the streets. People that do know me, my father had just went to a prison again. He ended up getting 30 years this time. So my father has a 30-year sentence. I was in the streets heavy. My mom was working 2 jobs. And so I sat there and I was thinking, how can I separate myself and put myself into another atmosphere or a different lane so that I could be prosperous and better. And so I seen the military as an opportunity to create another lane. It'll allow me to travel, see different things. There's people to the day that I meet even at Georgia State University that's never been outside of 285, that's never left Georgia. And that's crazy to me. So it opened my mindset. And then with being influenced and being exposure, my mindset expands. And I try to keep my mind like a child's. And what I mean by that is, if you take a CAT scan, and look at the electrical connections between a child and a human adult, a grown adults, that child's brain is way more active because everything looks new to him. So I'm obsessed with information. I'm obsessed with learning. I know that I know a little bit of something, a lot of nothing.
Right.
So I use that as a motivation to continue to learn. And when I apply it, I feel like I'm getting better because Muhammad Ali said, man, if you're doing the same stuff that you was doing 10 years ago, you wasted 10 years of your life.
Right.
So I'm just trying to add on.
And that's always positive.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Knowledge is power.
It is.
Yeah. And what was that first book that you've ever read? I know the first time I met you, you showed me Blood in My Eye by George Jackson. But what was the first book that really made you go toward the conscious perspective outside of the family dynamic?
The Message to the Black Man in America by Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Wow. Okay.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, despite what a lot of people may say, some people say that that's not Islam. Some people say that he's detrimental to black people. However, I would say that organization, the Nation of Islam, has done something that a lot of organizations haven't been able to do, and that was clean black men up, give them an identity of self-worth. Now you see black men clean cut, dressed like me, bow ties on, articulating themselves, and they have a purpose. And the message to the black man, he told me that we as black people are intellects. It is our duty to go to school, to go get a trade, get information, and then give it back to the community. Knowledge is nothing if we don't give it to anybody. And so that book pushed me to, okay, what am I going to do to give back to my community? Because I am my community, just like the Vanguard. So, you know what I'm saying? So what am I going to do that's going to better us all and better us? So it's about being selfless too.
Right.
You know, I could go to law school and make buku money, but it's not about the money for me.
Right.
Money is nothing.
No, definitely teaching is great, and definitely having men teaching, because that is very, very vital for young kids coming up. That's boys.
And all the ladies in the education too, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
fellas,
Step it up, man.
look, I know some beautiful teachers in the Metro Atlanta area that bust their butt, man, but lack of males.
Right.
Lack of males.
That's
We
true.
need
So
black
true.
men in the education.
And you need to, those young men that are sitting in those classrooms need to see a greater example of themselves in terms of what they can be. Because, again, you have to have an example. For me, literally, it was the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Really?
That changed. And again, I read Message to the Black Man. I read the other books. But for whatever reason, because of his transformation, that did it for me. Initially, of course, I read a lot of books. J.A. Rogers, Race and Sex.
Oh yeah, I got J.A. Rogers.
Yeah,
Classic.
we're talking about something that was in.
Have you read Manny Marble's
1950s.
version of the autobiography of Malcolm?
No,
X?
I haven't actually.
Because
heard
I'm not a
about
big fan of Alex Haley's.
Right. Okay. All right.
One, we know that Alex Haley copywrote half of that information.
Right.
We also know that the FBI and all these guys helped him write that book.
Right.
So can we really trust the FBI? Can we really trust these code writers? That's one. Two, then when we look at the historical context of some of the stuff that was in there, I get why they did it. Right. They exaggerated a lot of Malcolm X's life.
They did. Yeah.
And I get why Alex Haley did it for the reason you're saying.
Right.
He wanted to show a transformation. So I tell people all the time, if Michael Little can become Malcolm X, or Malcolm X can become El Haj Malik Shabazz, then there's no excuse for none of us. But I think you should definitely check out that Manny Marble's version, because it's more of a historical context and more historically correct and accurate.
Well, Dr. Gato Cooks, he was a former Southern California chapter of the Black Panther Party member. He always, he's a mentor of mine. He always say, you need to read that book. So you're actually the second or third person to say,
Manny Marble's version
gotta
is A1. I found out some stuff about Malcolm X that I was surprised.
Wow. Well, I need to get into it then.
One of the things, it is going to shock you, but even down to homosexuality and his sexuality.
I actually heard something about that. Yeah, which was very,
That's intersectionality.
It's very
so
disturbing.
That's something that we do have to deal with, because one thing that is going on right now is with certain groups getting power. A friend of mine was just talking about this, about the intersectionality, about how we do have black leaders who are part of that community.
You're right. Well, absolutely.
And so we do have to highlight certain people because of this, and let them know, like you said, you can see yourself within that. So there are people in the black community who's of that.
Well, let me say, James Baldwin.
Persuasion.
James Baldwin. What's my man that used to debate Bayard Rustin? Used to debate Malcolm X all the
Bayard
time.
Rustin,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Yeah, Kwame, you have some question for brother?
I wanted to add something. When I came in, I was listening to you, and to show that the struggle actually went even further back. Robert Williams wrote the book Niggers with Guns.
Negroes with Guns, right.
Professor Akinyele wrote We Will Shoot Back, which only goes back to the 1940s, basically. But I was just reading about the Civil War, and of course, Harriet Tubman. But what actually kicked off the Civil War was, who was it? Do we know? And he wasn't even black.
Tell us.
Tell us, please.
General. We call him General. Everybody that started this. Well, I'll let that simmer for a little bit. But we go back to Denmark Vesey.
It's funny. I was just talking about him.
Gabriel Prosser.
Yes, Gabriel Prosser,
Right.
Nat Turner.
Nat Turner,
So you
right.
see, every decade we had, those of us who are in the New African movement like myself, we call these people generals. We have given them a title, where we call them generals. And so there was a general every decade. Okay, what's his name? There's a professor that wrote a book about the 1,500 rebellions. Yeah, we've risen up so many times. It's probably closer to 5,000. But when he wrote the book, maybe in the 1940s or 50s, he had actually found 1,500 documented rebellions, and each one tells a story.
That. I was just building on that, right? About how when we talk about the black struggle, a lot of the times when we talk about black people and the struggles in the United States, we like to start in the 60s.
Right.
We like to start in the 70s. And the powers may be do the same thing. How come we don't talk about the 1920s or 1865, after 1888, because that's when Morehouse was built, 1888, after the Emancipation Proclamation, and it's still here. So how come we don't talk about 1888 and through the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s? Why? Because black people was prospering.
Yeah.
Right.
We had our own guns. We had our own communities. We had
Tulsa,
Oklahoma. We had
Black Wall Street.
Rosewood.
Florida,
This is during in the 30s and the 40s. This is when black intellect was going. W.E.B. Du Bois was talking, dropping the science, all of that. So it's funny that you said that. Even when we talk about Denmark Vesey, because I was just telling somebody, it's not a coincidence that Donlon Roof, or whatever that white supremacist name was, chose that church that he chose to shoot up.
Yeah.
That's the same church that Denmark Vesey started in South Carolina when he was starting the slave rebellion.
Wow.
It's the exact same church. It's not a coincidence.
Yes.
Right. Well, I go back to 1804 and prior to that with the Haitian Revolution.
Oh, yeah.
Those of us who talk about being revolutionaries and freedom fighters, the only successful revolution in the Western Hemisphere that made complete complete change, I should say at least, was the Haitian Revolution.
Right. Haitians are one of my favorites, man. And that's why I think this platform and just media, and that's something that I see myself doing more of, is being more doing like journalism and multimedia, because one of the things we have to do is we have to control the agent. We have to control the story of the agent. And we don't talk about Dessalines. When we see pictures of Haiti, we think of like a third world country.
Right.
But Dessalines is the only person. Haitians the only nation in the revolution in 1804 to be a slave population and revolt and take over their actual island.
That's right.
The only ones ever to do it. The only other people that was close to it were the Maroons.
That's true.
Out of Jamaica. And they still own. Okay, that's what
Yeah,
they're talking about. Okay,
Yeah,
the Maroons out of Jamaica. But we have to highlight these guys, Dessalines, and we got to talk about these guys, because I'm afraid that eventually we're not going to talk about these guys no more as we get older, because we feel like we're so far removed from the struggle.
You're right.
It's not that long ago.
That's true. That's true. And actually, go ahead.
I want to put in a plug. Before Haiti, there was another one. There was another country in Brazil called Palmares.
Right.
And we have Zumbi. There's actually a national holiday in Brazil, November 20th, every year to celebrate the man Zumbi, who was the leader. He actually he knew his genealogy. He was from the Bakongo tribe of Congo.
I'm gonna look that up.
Right. And we're actually, Atlanta Segment Productions, we're actually researching and developing a zombie movie right now.
Okay,
and the
that's
only
dope.
reason that you don't have a Palmares, which meant the land of palm trees, today is because the Europeans put together a United Nations force to go in and destroy Palmares.
I believe it. I mean, it's that's why I said it's important to control our narrative, because people think that even when we talk about Africa, that all of Africa was colonized, and that's not the case.
No,
like,
hell
let's talk
no
about
way.
Ethiopia.
Never been colonized.
You know what I'm saying? Some
Never
people
was
try to say
colonized.
Liberia wasn't colonized, but it was colonized.
It was neo-colonialism, basically.
In a
I say
sense-
oppression with using the same method and
So
ideology of-
that's why Liberia is an interesting place, because it represents what could happen to us.
right.
That place is a place where African Americans, or people who came from descendants of slavery, went there and they conquered and enslaved the Africans of their original land.
sure did.
That's why their flag is just like the American flag and
Yeah,
everything.
red, white, and
Capital
blue.
is Monroe.
What
Yeah.
happens when the oppressed becomes the oppressor?
That's right.
And that's sometimes that's what happens to us. We think that we made it, and we get into some of these platforms and levels, and we allow our own information to oppress us. And I think that's where we're at, especially in Atlanta. A lot of people are moving here. We talk about this being a black Mecca, but a black Mecca for who?
Right.
This is a black elitist city, and so if you not, some of my
Part
brothers
of
are gonna
the
get
crew,
mad. But if you're not part of
the
these,
clique.
these BGLOs, or you're not, cool with certain people, or playing blackface, you're not in either. So that's why this platform and Power 108 is important, because we're controlling the narrative.
That's so true. That's so true. Well, they say that power is the ability to define phenomena, then in turn make it act in the desired manner.
Malcolm
So
X also said, "Whoever controls the media controls the minds of the people."
Wow. I tell you, look here, man. We got extra butter today. We're going to go to a break, but we'll be right back with the Vanguard on Power 108.9.
Hey, bro, let me get that extra butter though.
Hey, I told people, get ready for you. Get the popcorn ready.
I want to. That'll be a dope thing too.
Oh yeah, they're going to.
Cause all the restaurants right there.
Yeah,
Hey.
and you
Take your little photography.
and look, go ahead on Groupon, because they have specials on Groupon.
Groupon be saving my mother be on Groupon.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, look,
Well, you save a lot of
go on
money, man.
Groupon. It's always on Groupon too. Yeah.
They got a nice
I was going to say, when I come back, I'm going to just read the national days real quick, and then I'm going to come back to these questions.
Zombie.
And I
His brother actually went to Brazil, and I have a picture of him standing next
Yeah, I
to
stood right next to
the zombie statue. Yeah.
And Salvador Bahia.
I just
Yeah.
found this out. I didn't know this, but Brazil and Nigeria has both black people concentrated in.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes.
But then it made sense. I'm
Yeah.
like, that makes sense, because Brazil is where they had the slave farms where they was breeding.
And it was right across from Africa. All of
Yeah, it was a shorter trip. It
Yeah.
was a shorter
Yeah.
trip. Yeah.
Cruise- think about cruise ship.
Only
It wasn't Carnival.
50% of the slaves went to Brazil.
Right.
45% went to the Caribbeans. 5% went to the Americas.
Well, check.
See,
Hey, check. Doc,
But that's why I argue. That's why I argue that
Yes.
the
Right.
black person in America's situation is unique. We're the most disconnected, and so because we're the most disconnected, there's only 5% of us. We're not like everywhere else where they have revolts and stuff that was able to last. Two. That's another thing that they did. They stopped getting Africans straight from Africa.
Right.
Because of the Dan Marquis and that turning all these guys. They were the guys from Angola and Congo. These are warrior tribes.
Yes.
So they started saying, okay, we need what we call seasoned slaves.
Right.
They was getting them from Brazil.
And the
They didn't
Caribbean.
want nobody revolted no
Yes.
more.
And Jamaica was a seasoning place as well.
let's pick up
Yes.
on that when we come back, because that's a very good
Yes.
point we need to talk about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah, the
Geechee
Geechee right there.
Yeah.
Geechee in the Carolina.
They come from the Angola tribe. That language
Yeah.
is African and mixed with English. The Haitians, African language, Haitian Creole is African language mixed with French.
Yes.
That's true. That's
So
true.
we embedded. That's why, like, I get a little mad with like the Caribbeans and all those other places. They're so prideful, but they embed their culture within it. And unlike us, we don't do that because we're like, are we even American? We haven't
Right,
been
that's
I
what-
did it. That's
That
what
was one of the
Okay.
last
That's what I was trying to get.
We coming back,
That's
y'all?
what I'm trying to get.
All right. It's a powerful conversation, though.
Okay.
Yeah, we're back with the Vanguard on Power 108.9. We got Valentine Ali still in the house, still putting butter on that popcorn. But I would definitely want to run through real quickly the National Day, sponsored by From Old Guard to Vanguard photo exhibit by Kamal Osiris, as well as From Old Guard to Vanguard book by Malik Ishmael. Today actually is National Ice Cream Pie Day, so all you pie lovers, it is what it is. Honey Bee Day. So get your honey on. And National Fajita Day. I can use a good fajita every now and then. So that's definitely what's up.
Who cooking the fajita? Who cooking the household?
Now,
Who cooking your household?
She can actually do
she
a pretty good
throwing
job.
down?
Oh yeah, she does a great
That's
job.
how you got him. You fed him.
Hey, it's just like Brother Man Fifth Flow. Just give me a sandwich. but sandwich. That's right. But we were talking about during the break about Africans, how there's more Africans in Brazil compared with Nigeria. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's one of the issues when we talk about black identity in America, because one thing I've noticed is like black Americans, we have an identity crisis. We don't know who we are. Every time I meet black people, they'll tell me either I'm not black, I'm Jamaican, I'm Haitian. Or they'll tell me I'm not black or African, I'm a Hebrew Israelite. I'll meet Chamors that say I'm a sovereign citizen, I'm more science too. It's like, well, Negro, who are we? Everybody want to tell me who we are. But then when I look at the statistics and we look at the Middle Passage, 50% of the captured Africans went to Brazil. 45% went to the Caribbean. Only 5% of those captured came to the Americas. And so we're the most disconnected because those other large populations who came from Angola, came from West Africa, these warrior tribes were able to embed their culture in there. Right. And so I think that's why they were able to have Dessalines was able to be successful with the revolution of 1804. Right. They were closer to their ancestors. They was closer to that language. Right. And they had the majority. Right. We're the minority here.
That's true. Yes.
It's not ironic that over 400 or 500 years we haven't increased from 12 to 14% in this nation.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah.
Well, let's do this now. These percentages, if you go back, I've actually done a study where I've looked at the percentages going back over 100 years, and they've always been using the 11, 12% over and over and over again. So, but if you look at the population of black people in the United States, there's 30 million of us. Or more. Check this out.
Okay. I know where you're going with this.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Yes. But Brazil, there's 60 million. Mm-hmm. And what has happened, if you look at it, the Euro-Americans, they're only having 2.5 children. And that's always basically been the case, except for, farming communities where they had to have 10, 12 per. But so blacks have always had more children. You know what I'm saying?
I think, and that's funny you said that, because one of my arguments is, one, it is more, but then that the percentage that they're putting in here. Yeah. However, that's the issue, because when you do your census, if you don't do the census and you don't identify as black, then you're not going to be counted. Yeah. That's why I like that. Antonio Moore came out with the African descendants of slavery, because it focused solely on the Black American experience here. So it's more of us here, but you got other black people who benefit from our struggles who don't accept that they are black or won't say that they're black. They do nationality first. So that ties in, that definitely ties into maybe why the numbers are skewed the way they are.
Yeah, and also I was going to say that. Oh, go ahead, brother.
As a Caribbean person, I understand it perfectly what you're saying, because the different islands, some had French, Portuguese, Spanish, English, whatever, Dutch. And so these people, these cultures, these European cultures dominated and kept them thinking more, I'm a Dutch person. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
It's funny you say that, because like even with one of my professors, she's from Jamaica, but she said her mother would say that she's a Brit.
Yes.
Her mind was that I'm a Brit, and that is nationality. And so that's something that's unique with the identity. Black people here in America, we look at it by race. You look like me, we are the same. However, everybody else puts nationality first. But the reason that is detrimental is because just because you're born of a land does not make you of a land. Yeah. If I was born in China, would you say that I'm Chinese?
No.
Regardless if I spoke Chinese or not, you would say no, he's African.
Right.
So just because you're born in Jamaica or Haiti does not make you of that land. You're still African.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Well, just like in the Dominican Republic, they'll claim they're not black, but at the same time, it's like
Just look at them.
just look at them. You know what I'm saying?
But I read a book.
Okay.
It's called the hair between the hair between my ear or something like that. And it breaks down because Dominicans judge race based off the hair.
Yeah.
Right.
So we all have
exactly.
different. What we're doing is we're looking at race from a American Eurocentric lens. Right. So we're looking at it by skin pigment, where they had the black test where they'll put it up the brown paper bag test. And South Africa, I just learned they had a pencil test where they will put it in your hair and see how kinky your hair is.
Yeah.
I heard of
So
that.
Dominicans judge race or what their ethnicity is based off the texture of your hair. Right. We do it by skin, so that's why it's one of the miscommunications.
Yeah.
And then two, they're big on nationality because they embedded their African culture within their nationality. They're proud of who they are. They're proud of where they're from. Right. In America, we've always been told you're not American, you're not this, you're a second-class citizen. Right. So we're still trying to figure it out here.
Well, on the same island of Hispanic. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, but still with color lines, because for us, even in Louisiana, light as I am, that would be an argument between parties.
Right.
It's like, are you black? Are you white? Are you mixed?
Then they'll hit you with, but then you even meet people that are black within that area will be like, well, I'm not black, I'm Creole.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's always going to be a region because you're going to be the proudest of the region more so than self.
Right.
So, growing up, did you having a lighter skin pigment, did that bother you? Like, did you have issues or have a trouble understanding who you were as a black woman?
Nope, because I was raised by my father. And the thing about it is he always taught us to be proud of self. So I look at me more so than I did anything else surrounding me and judging me. Because that's part of our society is looking at and should be within. But we have a lot of our people not like that. They look at what others say about them instead of learning about self first. And I was taught that at a young age. At the age of 5 and 6 years old, we knew who we were. And we knew what we wanted to do was actually started off by making our parents proud. A lot of that has been lost. A lot of people are more about the gimme, gimme, gimme. Even as we spoke today, we were talking recently, me and some of my friends, it was about what your children want compared to what your children need. We lost that somewhere.
And so that comes into like the old Vanguard passing down traditions down to the new Vanguard. Where did we fail?
Well, it's been a long
Because it's
struggle.
obviously a disconnect. Because like I'll give you an example. I was speaking to a woman the other day, and she was telling me that I didn't know that black women did this, but in her culture, her mother taught her what type of panties and stuff to wear with her clothes. I didn't know that was important. You know what I mean?
I
She's
didn't
like,
either.
Yeah, me either.
in certain
It
cultures, she's Caribbean.
okay.
Yes.
She was saying that, you know, you wear certain colors or certain type of panty aligns with certain type of pants or with certain type of materials. Right. Women are not teaching that no more. Or, perfect example, I remember growing up, like I was talking about the food.
Yeah.
Food is a key to a man's heart. Most women are going to tell me, I'm hungry. Where are we going out to eat? Where have these skills gone? And how can I, as the new Vanguard, pick these skills back up and integrate them into our society? How do we bridge that gap? Because there's obviously a disconnect. Because women are not like you no more, and I'm going to stay single until.
So why this? Part of it was just what you said. Look, part of it was you actually saying to the point of you want to be a teacher. Why you want to be a teacher? Part of that is because we want to educate each other. Right now, yes, a lot of the young ladies are just like the young men. I see young men all day long with their pants all the way down. I can see their underwear. Right. My thing about it is, how did that come about? And how we change it back to men picking their pants up and wearing a belt.
Some progress, because I used to sag.
Yep, my nephew.
It's a
I'll
transition.
be lying if I say I didn't.
It's a transition, but it's part of popular culture.
It's also about what I've
Sometimes
seen,
popular culture
too.
can be
Yeah.
negative.
It's also about what I've seen.
Right.
Because
Peer pressure.
as a child, right?
Right.
Oh, and I got a question for y'all. I got a
okay,
question
all
for
right,
y'all.
all
This ties into this. But as a child growing up, right? Like, I remember everybody as kids used to be like, oh, I want to play for the Lakers. I want to play for this person. I want to play for that. Me as a child knew I was a little different because I'll be looking at the screen. I'll see the dudes in the suits. I'm like, if they the boss and they paying you 2, 3, 4, 5 million, 30 million, how much you making?
Right.
That's who I wanted to be. So when we talk about black people sticking together, I got a question for y'all. As elders, how do you feel about Jay-Z and his NFL partnership?
I think it's a traitorous situation, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And thing is, because thing is,
Agreed.
you have a man, Colin Kaepernick, who sacrificed so much, and thing is,
He backdoored him.
he backdoored him, and the thing is,
beyond kneeling.
and also his measure of influence is the main thing. If he was anybody else saying, well, Joe Blow, saying, well, I'm going to support the NFL for whatever, but for Jay-Z, someone of his stature, and I may get some of the dynamics of why and how, but ultimately,
I don't understand.
It's not something that's good in terms of just the position that Colin Kaepernick took.
I feel like one. I'm tired of people always making it celebrities speak for us.
Right.
Rappers,
Right.
entertainers. Jay-Z does not speak for me.
Right.
So when the person asked him, what do we do now? Do we stand or do we kneel? And then he didn't really have an answer. He stumbled and he was like, we're past kneeling. Who are you
He sure
to
did.
say that we're past kneeling when there's still black men, black women, people of minority, and we're not a minority, but a minority race being killed out here.
And still kneeling.
We're still kneeling. We're still going through the same issue. So who are you? Because you got to check.
Right.
And so,
That's
but see, that's the issue. We don't do the research. We see these things and we jump. Just like everybody was celebrating him for being a billionaire. Well, if we break down what he made his money in, $700 million of that came from alcohol. Alcohol is the most abused drug in America.
Definitely.
So you made your millions off of detrimenting the black community, and we congratulate you. And then you promote it as if you did it through hip hop music, and that is not the case. So we got to point those out, even with you taking the check for the NFL. Yes, we need black people in these positions and control the narrative, but we should not be bought. And what you did was you sold out, you got a check, and now you're trying to control the narrative. And then you lied and said that, well, I talked to Kaepernick about it. Kaepernick girl came out with it and said, he didn't call us. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
But black people, sometimes we see something and we love Jay-Z so much and it's a brand. I commend the brother for his stuff that he do. Right. But that is not a line of the community, and I think that's why we need to come up with something like a community or a council or a board of elders or something, even in the hip hop community, where we control the narrative. Because in the 90s and the 80s, we was talking consciousness.
Yeah.
It was booming.
Yeah.
Now we got people like Jimmy Iovine and all these other people who are not of the culture controlling the narrative. And look, we got products of Jay-Z. I don't think Rakim would have did something like that.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Even Big Daddy Kane wouldn't have did nothing
KRS
like that.
One, yeah, right.
KRS definitely wouldn't
not.
have did nothing like that.
And you know how Chuck D feel about it.
We need more Chuck D.
That's what I was just about to say. These celebrities that are speaking up on our behalf and for us, those are the ones that we should be pushing up, not the ones that's pulling us down. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We're supposed to be uplifting, holding each other's arms up.
Right.
Not
But I think they have certain people have a certain platform, but at the same time, you're your own leader. You're your own celebrity. You're your own, revolutionary. So the thing is, that power has to come from within.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you look so much to someone from outside of your own self for some kind of guidance, when you can acquire that knowledge and theory and able to seek that guidance
That's
for the people.
why I said The Message to the Black Man was probably one of the most powerful books because that's what he gets into. And then his conversation with Wallace Dean Farad is what started the lessons in the 5% Nation. So I don't know if y'all are familiar with the 5% of the Nation of Gods and Earth. So I grew up in that cipher and with knowledge itself. And the first lesson in the first degree is who is the original man. It's all about finding out who you are, having an identity. But the problem is most of us really don't have an identity.
Correct.
You know what I mean? True. That's why we looking up to Jay-Z and it's like, well, maybe because he got this, or we go join BGLO groups because we're looking for an identity.
Well, there's an old saying that somebody won't treat you right. How can you expect them to teach you right?
But we see the mentality of people who are oppressed. It's called a quasi relationship where we're attached to our oppressor.
That's it.
Or if you can't be them, join them.
That's exactly what he did. I just don't understand how out of 13%, 6% of the population is males, but yet out of that 6%, we make up 70% in the NFL, but yet we control nothing.
Wow.
We have the power to control our own league. We have the power to control our own radio stations, our own platforms, our own schools.
Yeah,
we can do it.
We don't support ourselves. That's the biggest thing.
That's right.
I disagree with that.
A lot of times. Okay, otherwise you'd be further than where you are now.
I disagree with that.
Go ahead.
And the reason I say that, I used to feel that way, and I'm starting to change my mentality on that. The reason I say that is because you have to surround yourself around people who are on the same agenda as you. So we, on the macro level, we may not support each other on a global level, but on a macro level, I know that you got a certain show, so I'll post and you'll post your information. I know if you got a food store, I'm going to tell my friends word of mouth, hey, you need to go check out his store. So we do it on a micro level.
We do,
Grassroots.
and that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Look where you are.
Right.
Still today, I'm telling you, look where you are.
But that's still progress. I think that's very positive in terms of, because the grassroots community is the base of our community.
Yeah,
and so the thing is, everything that's elevated beyond that is just how we're building.
Keep it real. Where that is the heart of it, because really that's the heartbeat. If that die, it's over.
George Jackson says that too in his book "In Blood in My Eye," and he talks about what is the Vanguard. The Vanguard is the front line. Right. He said the Vanguard doesn't try to motivate the people and wait for the people to move. He said the Vanguard leading in the rear. He said that would be called a rear guard. The Vanguard is in the front. That's right. So he said we don't wait on the people. We go and do it. That's right. And so that's why I think that's why I'm getting better at stuff that I do in life now, because I don't wait for anything. Right. I'm just gonna start.
That's it.
Do it now. If I know that you got a black business or whatever, I'm gonna deal with you. If I know this is the information, I'm gonna just go ahead and start. I want to start a show. I'm just gonna go ahead and start it. Right. It's about starting now. Just do it.
And you're not looking for approval.
That's it.
You're not looking
because I know who I am.
Yeah.
I'm confident in myself. I'm not afraid to fail.
Right.
But even failing is success, because you at least achieve something.
Right.
You went after something. You set a goal. You try to go for, and not only that, you learn, you improve, you move on. You never look at failure as failure. It's still learning.
Kwame, you had a question?
No, I was just about to say, just like you were a scout in the Army, that's what the Vanguard is. At the front, the very front.
The ears, the eyes to the battlefield.
Right. Exactly.
Well, Malcolm X once said, I'm a part of all I've met. And you had such a very interesting journey, especially as a young man. I mean, to go from, growing up in South Central Los Angeles, your family dynamics, travels, the military service in which you learned certain skills and had certain experiences. Speak to that in terms of how it made you.
Originally, I was born in Georgia. I was born in a very small little country town called Bainbridge, Georgia. I don't know if y'all ever heard of it.
Okay, nope. I've heard it.
Exactly. Shout out to Bainbridge, though. You know what I mean? It's Decatur County. Okay. But 2 weeks old, my father kidnapped me.
Okay.
Dipped off with me, came to Atlanta. My mother wasn't trying to leave. My mother is a country southern girl. Right. She wanted to leave Bainbridge. Okay. Pops was like, let me see my son real quick. Bounce to the city.
Wow.
Made my mother come. But one of the important people who influenced my life was my Aunt Martha Muhammad, my great aunt, my grandmother's mother. And she joined the Nation of Islam back in maybe the 70s. Mm-hmm. And she said the reason she joined the Nation of Islam was, as a child, she used to see how her father used to get talked to by white police officers.
Right.
And he used to have his head down. He couldn't talk a certain way. Right. And she said one day she was watching TV and she seen Muhammad Ali talking. The way he talked, his jab. Right. And she said, I don't know what he is or what he does, but that's what I want to be. So indirectly, people like that. That's why I said it's good to have images of who we are. Right. Muhammad Ali influenced my whole doctrine from before I was even born, because my family probably would have never gotten into the nation if it wasn't for him. Mm-hmm. So my father grew up in the streets. He was a 5%er during the time like 80s and 90s. Eventually, my mother became in the Nation of Islam at Mosque number 15. And so I had the Nation of Islam, I had the 5%ers, and then I was around a lot of guys that were Black Panthers, RBE, Revolutionaries, the New Black Panther Party. So as a kid, my father was teaching me about Assata Shakur, Geronimo Pratt, Marcus Garvey. Marcus Messiah Garvey is probably like one of my favorite people to talk about as a kid.
Whose birthday was yesterday.
Facts. And so like in our household, we had these pictures and stuff like that around. I grew up too with like a time where we had potlucks in our community where, like, at 5-6 years old, I knew everybody in the community because everybody came over and we cooked with each other. And so it was a sense of community. Both my parents are, well, my father had 2 wives at one point in time. So, so it's a little different. However, both of my mothers come from a collegiate background. So it's not like a lot of women be like, oh, you must have found some dumb. No, that's not the case. My stepmother, I call her stepmom just to break it and make it simple for people.
Right. Just a different.
She has a master's degree. She's a principal in Baltimore. She went to Clark Atlanta and she went to Morgan State. My mother went to FAMU, and my mother has a degree in damn, don't be mad at me, psychology and criminal justice.
Okay.
So I come from a collegiate background, but I also was around guys in the streets during the 90s
That
who
sounds
was
like the
very,
Right.
the most smartest people I ever ran into didn't go to college.
Right.
that.
Right. That's right.
Straight up. So in the 90s, I grew up in a time where black people loved each other. I was growing up listening to like Rakim, Eric B., black conscious in music, Nas. He was talking about stuff. He was talking, referencing Egypt, Lord Jamar, Brand
yeah.
Nubian.
Oh, bro, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
come on, yeah.
Baby. Yeah.
You know, Brand
And
Nubian.
then Dead Prayers would be a great example of that today as well.
Exactly. The imagery, going to these events, my parents would take, they homeschooled me for the most part too. I've never been to kindergarten, never been to pre-K. And then the form of discipline wasn't just beat your kid ass and not explain nothing. You know, my parents really didn't beat me, but they would punish me in the sense of education. So if I was doing something I wasn't supposed to do, okay, we're going to make you write a book report, and you want to still wild out, put your hands up. You know what I mean? Whole boot. So I would say everything that I've been through, gang banging, running the streets, hustling, going to the military, it's helped me to be a revolutionary and understand stuff. Do it now.
Right.
That's the biggest thing I learned. Just do it now, because tomorrow is not promised.
Don't waste time. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but I told y'all we got movie butter on the popcorn today. So we'll
And
be right
spices.
back. And spices. We'll be right back with the Vanguard on
Caribbean
Power.
spices.
108.9. We'll be wrapping it up. Man, we kicking it today, brother. That's for sure.
That
Nubian.
conquered and all of that. Like they live like off the land. Is that
Yes,
so much
yes,
to this day?
yes. Up to
I don't-
modern period, there were 9 villages, and I'm working on a project called Freedom Road, Jamaica, and we found out that a lot of the original Maroon villages were actually Queen. Well, we call her Queen Nanny. She was the leader of the Maroons. She's called, yes, she's called Nanny of the Maroons. And we've done research. We found out that she was actually royalty, and she actually helped free all of her brothers. So each brother became a mayor of each individual towns. So that's what you see what I'm saying. So we have this.
What descendants of like Africa they're from?
Yes, we're Ashanti. We're primarily we are Ashanti. Both my mom and my dad are both. Yes.
We're
But see,
going to come back on.
Like, Black Americans, that's why we dominate.
Dominate what?
Sports. Genetically, just
Best trained, best educated, best equipped.
I want to know a question for you. Would be who's some of your mentors? Oh.
Matter of fact, it's safe to say that they would rather switch than fight.
Oh, yeah, we got back with some Public Enemy, you already know. And we have a final question for Brother Valentine Ali by Kathy, and then we're going to wrap this thing up.
All right, just wanted to know who are some of your mentors that you look up to?
mentors. Anybody that can give me information, anybody that I can learn from. A mentor doesn't even have to be somebody older than me. That's one. But my father, El Haj Malik Shabazz, one of my mentors. Current mentors right now would be like Collins Bernard. He's the director at Georgia State University right now over the Office of Black Student Achievement Office, which is our own space at a PWI, so that's dope. Mike Kimball's another advisor, director, Alpha. Dope brother. He pushes me. They're both in their PhD program. Right. Another brother is Dr. Jonathan Grant. He just got his PhD. I'm going to introduce y'all to.
Okay.
And he's teaching, I believe, at Clark right now. So these guys, Asada Shakur, Angela Davis, these people, Geronimo Pratt, Bunchy Carter, people that I've seen in these books influenced me.
Right on.
All right.
And then we want to definitely shout out to Ville, your cohorts on the Ville.
I see y'all.
And we definitely had a wonderful time. And brother, the
it.
door's open anytime you want to return.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So we'll be back September 1st with Professor Akinyele Mojo of
Georgia State.
Of Georgia State University. So we look forward to seeing you guys.
We will shoot back.
We'll be black again. Check y'all next time.
Peace.
Peace. That's what I'm talking about, brother.
Leave it. Okay.
Oh, man, I knew it was going to be some powerful conversation over here.
Kirby Smart from Spain.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. put that in the bag, man.
Yep.
Like, you want an outerwear? Or you want
You might want to do some research on this because this is the latest struggle right now. The Jamaican government has invited in some foreigners to come in